everybody. We are here for our monthly CSD board meeting. I will go ahead and get us started by reading the instructions on how to make public comment during the meeting. And at points in the meeting, when the meeting chair requests public comment, members of the public shall indicate their desire to speak. All public comments shall be addressed to the board board directors and limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The board directors may choose to respond to comments or requests. Staff to respond to at the conclusion of the public comment period. I'm sorry, I'm bad at reading out loud things. Before we go ahead and call to order and move forward, I just want to remind everybody that we are all here because we all care about the community, we all care about the district, and I would like us all to treat each other with respect and decorum, and hopefully we can move on from what happened last month and just treat everybody with the respect that they deserve. All right, when we do a call to order, we don't have to do attendance, and let's take a look at the agenda. Is there any changes, Eric, that you need us to make? Is there any changes that anybody on the board needs us to make? Go ahead, Steve, would you like to comment on the agenda?
Yes, but before I start, I appreciate your request for decorum. And I think a proper approach would be an apology before moving on and papering over what happened last month, which was erased from the official record illegally, I presume by staff. But if there was simply an acknowledgement, I think we can move on. If, on the other hand, there's an attempt to bury it, then I think it's going to come up again and again and again. Now, as far as the agenda is concerned, I did make a request last month that we talk about the encroachments into Marinwood Park. It was not placed on the agenda. However, we were invited to speak and challenge my belief that encroachments don't belong in our park. That also is against the rules of public meetings. You're not supposed to invent stuff and put it on the agenda, but keep it out of the public notice. So I don't know what we can do to make sure that there's an actual democracy and integrity in this community. But I think it falls on each and every one of us. I hope you agree with that. So my request is that we discuss the matter of encroachment in proper form publicly.
Thank you for your comment. May I ask if you are recording me with your cell phone?
I am recording you with my cell phone.
That is fine. Next time, please let me know ahead of time, because
This is a public meeting.
it is a
as
public
you're aware.
meeting, and I know that them being recorded up there, but it would be, as we talked about, decorum and providing everybody with respect. It is a respectful thing to let me know that you are personally recording me. Thank you
will
for
be
your
recorded,
comments.
and
I'm going to move on now.
public
Thank
notice
you.
will be made of
We are going
behavior
to
in
adopt
this.
this agenda as it is,
Okay.
and we are going to move on to the consent calendar. We are going to look at the draft minutes of the regular meeting from last month and the bills paid. Does anybody from the board have any questions about anything that they see in the notes? Good. All right. Is there any questions for the public about our consent? Go ahead, Stephen.
Once again, there's obfuscation of the facts. Not only have you erased videotape and audio tape of the meetings, you have not described what actually occurred. And if I can remind you, I was told to shut the up, and the meeting was stopped. Okay? Now that isn't polite. It it's not decorum, but it is also not productive. Okay? And so, if you're going to pretend like you're Queen of Spades and whatever, you're in charge of the world here, and not actually recognize the fact that there is public discourse and dialogue and civility, and work towards that objective, there's not going to be any peace in this meeting. Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Kevin, go ahead.
Bill pay 7504 was the
Yep.
track, a planned capital expense, or was it an emergency?
It was planned, it was a Measure A expense.
Okay, it was in the capital budget?
Yes.
For Measure A, correct.
Great, thank you.
All right. Motion to approve. Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor of passing the consent calendar? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. All right. We are moving on to item D, public comment, open time for items not on the agenda. Speakers may comment only on non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The board may not take action on, consider, or debate items not on the agenda, except under narrow circumstances meeting statutory tests. Response to comments on non-agenda items will be limited to factual information or clarify questions from staff or board at the conclusion of the public comment period. The president may refer the matter to staff or for future meeting agendas. All right. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah. First of all, hi, Jeff. Haven't seen you for a couple of years. So last month, I started off talking about integrity of the park, integrity of the district, and within a few short minutes, people who had received my letter, but mysteriously they showed up to argue my points, obviously were informed ahead of time. It was completely unethical. Was not targeting them, but I did want to discuss the integrity issue of our parks. It ended up, as we say, when I responded back to their attacks, I was told to shut up by Bill Shea, and I have not received an apology. I haven't received an apology from anyone. You actually gave the staff a raise last time, and I just wonder, now since each one of you are appointed, who are you actually serving? Are you serving the purpose of our community? Are you serving democracy? Are you serving the betterment of our community? Now, Bill just turned 72, and in 8 years he'll be 80, and he's a healthy guy, and I know he takes care of himself. But the point I would like to make is we're all aging. And if we are going to continue to ignore our elderly population, the needs of, say, park benches for them to sit down, then we are really degrading the quality of this community. We're not just a summer camp and a pool. We are everybody who lives here, and there's 6,000 people who live here. If you're going to allow encroachments in our community, then I'm going to ask that you also accept the idea of a public donation of park benches, specifically for the purpose of people who are mobility impaired. In other words, these would be that fulfill the guidelines, that have arms and stuff like that. But I'd like to, I've been talking about this for years. You guys refused it. It's ridiculous because it's all I'm talking about is a few $1,000s. And seemingly, it's a us against them proposition when I would hope that we'd all be focused on the community. I'm sure Bill will never need a park bench, but maybe he will. I'll probably need a park bench, and probably each one of you will need a park bench to sit on. I ask that you consider this proposal, accept it, and if park benches start appearing in the park, that they not be removed, and you instruct the staff not to remove them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for your comment. And any donations should be talked to the district manager. Probably in writing what you are hoping to do would probably be the best idea. All right.
It would be an
It is a
encroachment, just
non-agenda
like
item,
the
so I'm
batting
moving
cage.
on. We're
Just like the
moving on to
batting cage.
district matters. We're specifically looking at number 1, the financial year 2022, 2023 year-end profit and loss financial statement. And I'm
I'm sorry,
gonna-
are there any other public comments?
Sorry. Jeff,
No.
would you like to? Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm sorry for overlooking you.
Second
Again,
before.
we're moving on to district matters, specifically item number 1. Eric, did you have a statement you wanted to give us about the pre-audit?
Sure. I mean, I gave you guys a pretty,
Do not allow editing of public videos.
pretty detailed staff report in here.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we're still trending the same way we've been trending for the last several fiscal years. I just kind of highlighted a few things. I'm not going to read this all word for word. But just in terms of operating revenue. So what you're looking at here, this is our operating budget. So this is, everything that you guys approved kind of in
1 second. Bill, is there? Are we okay? Okay.
everything you approved last May. It does not include the capital work that was done with the finalization of the maintenance facility, because that was never part of the operating budget. That was a separate capital project, but I do give you information about that farther down in here from an operating perspective. Again, this is all pre-audit, and I do note that there's a couple of other adjustments that we're just waiting for final figures on, but we basically exceeded our revenue exceeded expenses by about 1.09 million this year for the year, compared to what we had projected, which was a budgeted net gain of about 414,000. One of the big things there, obviously, ad valorem tax revenue exceeded our forecasts by a little over $213,000. And then it should also be noted that not reflected in these, but we deferred approximately $837,750 in recreation revenue to next fiscal year, meaning basically on July 1, that shows up on those books for next fiscal year. And that represents money received in 22-23 for programs that do not occur until 23-24. So GASB rules state we defer that to the year in which we earn it. In regards to the maintenance facility, to the exterior courtyards, which also included the pedestrian pathway, adjacent landscaping, as well as a exterior storage shed that was placed inside one, we expended a total of $539,468 during the fiscal year on that project. $106,669 was allocated from available Measure A, and the remaining $432,799 came from our general fund. We also continued the practice of contributing $100,000 into our OPEB trust. So when you look at everything and you compare it towards point in time last year, our cash balance in the district's general fund was approximately $8.29 million. That's an increase of about $750,000 from June 30 of 2022. And just a little note there to put that into context, our entire operating expenditure budget for this fiscal year is about $6.52 million. So we are doing well from a cash balance perspective now at this point. Of course, we still have large things, and we'll talk about FEMA later.
Yes, just a few things that we're going to be spending money on. Are there any questions or comments for Eric on this pre-audit statement?
Nope, thanks for a lot of the detail.
I like where it's going, that's for sure.
Last year was a good year. I certainly would point towards our staff on the rec side with Luke and Robin, just being very judicious about how they spend and keeping an eye on revenue and making sure we get it in. And on the fire side, they've been very good about expenditures needed and things like that too. So, I mean, it really comes down to everybody here.
And
I
great staff.
appreciate it.
You guys hired some great staff so that we can have amazing camps and amazing swim lessons that people want to come back and take this in classes. No, I'm good. I appreciate the breakdown of the details. I appreciate the very detailed statement that you have here. I know that there's somebody in the public who probably has better questions than I'm going to ever come up with. So I'm going to ask Jeff if he has anything he wants to ask.
Just a couple. So when the financial audit is complete, we'll have a much better understanding of where our long-term debt stands. We do not now in this report, but do you have an idea how the long-term debt is trending?
You know, it's interesting you should ask that, Jeff, because just yesterday, they published all of the most recent CalPERS valuations.
To my surprise.
I wonder if that's why you're here, yes.
Well, no, but we do have somebody who has helped to analyze those reports, and I
Yes.
reached out to that same person and sent that same person all 5 of the recent reports. And
Yeah.
said, hey, if you're just looking for something to do and you would like to take a crack at updating this, then you are welcome to. Not to put anybody on the spot, because they may or may not be sitting in the room right now.
And we may or may not love their information.
But anyway, so once we have that one better idea, the GASB 75 report, and I can tell you, GASB 75 actually has to deal with our OPEB. That has gone down from a long-term liability standpoint by roughly $300,000 from what it was last year. And that's actually gonna change a little bit more because, we've had some people come off of our retirement roll, who are no longer collecting retiree health.
So we had people go on.
Not under the retirement
Not
roll.
the
we
retirement,
haven't,
that's a
no.
different, okay.
Yeah, so I assume when they take the census for next year, which will be effective as of June 30, 2023, you'll see some levels of differences there too. So at any rate, to Jeff's point, those also get stated in our audited financials. With this done, and once we're able to fully close the books, we gotta wait on those couple other things. We'll start all of the reconcile process and get the audit engaged. And my goal this year is really to have the audit completed by end of calendar year.
Okay.
Next question.
Yes, so I understand that FEMA approval for the issue that we have over here in the pool is not guaranteed. And there is a risk, and I do not know how much that is, but it brings up a question. Are there any other large capital expenditures that you're looking at in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years,
How about the next 2 then?
I don't know about the next 2. I would say the next big capital expenditure that we're looking at, I mean, obviously we've got the playground coming up. That's going to be a couple $100,000, but that's 80% funded, and that's happening this current year. The one big one that kind of sticks out, there's 2. One is going to be a necessity, and one is a different type of project. At some point, we're going to have to do something about the top pool. That's going to be a large project. We have earth issues over there as well, so that's going to have to be solved, and that's not going to be a cheap or easy process by any stretch. The other thing that we've been talking about is just we're small resourced and other things become priorities as they happen, is looking at placing additional restrooms in the park area over towards the northern end of the park by the fence works.
And updating the facilities next door to reflect.
Yeah,
the
that's in this budget.
male and
Yeah,
female.
that's in this
Okay,
budget
But that is
already.
a capital expense that
Yeah,
we're looking at.
and that's not gonna be nearly as expensive as either of the 2. I mean, the pool thing, we're gonna be talking about easy 7 figures. And then the other one is gonna look at, I actually have no idea, but that'll be into 6 figures without a problem breaking that level either.
Okay. Well, what was provoking this question is, in reading your report, we have something like $1 3/4 million in cash more than the last budget. And I'm just wondering, is there a point where we could take some of that excess money and start paying down some of this long-term debt? Doing a cost-benefit analysis, I mean, generally speaking, you don't earn on what you've got at the county what you're paying out for this long-term debt. And when does it make sense to start, maybe incrementally using some of that extra money to, you know, reduce the interest expenses.
I don't disagree, I don't think, I can't speak for the board, but these are things that we've actually brought up kind of in the past. The monkey wrench that we got thrown into this year is with this project out behind the pool building and waiting on to see if FEMA is going to fully accept that or not, because I assume that's gonna probably creep very close to 7 figures when it's said and done as well. And that's, the repair work has to be done.
7 figures all paid by the district or paid by FEMA?
No, well, it depends if FEMA picks it up or not. So I
Correct.
don't have guarantees on
Understood.
FEMA. If FEMA picks it up, their total contribution part of it would be like 93%.
Understand.
So they'll pick up the vast majority of it. If they don't pick it up, it's on us.
So, keeping our eye on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we get fortunate enough to have them play ball with us, then maybe that's the time we can start looking at, you know, cost benefit analysis.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was something that Eric and I had kind of talked about previously, once the audit is done, seeing how much we have, what we have, and what we can do about planning forward.
Well, we talked about it in this forum too, and you know, really kind of utilizing services of a financial government, public agency, financial professional, to then look at what are these debts and where are you going to get the most bang for your buck. Does it make more sense to start applying more on an annual basis towards paying down your OPEB debt, or does it make more sense to start a similar type of a trust intended to pay down your pension debt?
Understood.
So it's kind of where we're
I
at.
appreciate it. I'm not trying to
You're not-
continually bring up the same topic over and over, but I only attend about once a year.
We appreciate all comments and input regarding this, because that was the one thing that we were all very sad, besides seeing your smiling face every month, was having your expertise knowledge on this. So,
Well, thank you. Good to be back.
and you were free to go. There's less fireworks now, or kind of boring, but, all right. Do you have anything else, Jeff, that you wanted to bring up?
No, not at
Okay.
this time. Well, I can make one parenthetical comment. I've been back for a couple of days. I've walked twice, and I love what's happened over in the open space or the maintenance facility. It looks terrific, and I congratulate you all.
Thank you, and thank you for being part of the board that started that. All right, anybody else have any more questions about the pre-audit? Okay, we are gonna move on to the Marin County Grand Jury Report, which was given to us about building more ADUs, looking to increase Marin's housing supply. Approve and authorize district manager to submit response on behalf of Marinwood CSD. So we're looking to approve this.
So moved.
I second. Eric, did you want to say something?
No.
Before we, okay.
No, I mean, all I would really say is this entire report doesn't really apply to our
Yeah.
agency, and I think if they had the ability to do more research, they would understand that we don't impose the types of fees that this report is focusing on, and probably would have left us out of the entire report. But they didn't have that time, and we got named just like every other fire agency in the county, and my response, I think, reflects our position as an agency. That said, this is a response on behalf of the board, so if there's any changes or edits that would like to be made, by all means, let me know. Otherwise, I try to just keep it sweet, short, to the point, that if really it's not applicable to us, we won't be doing what they recommend because we don't have those fees, and we can neither fully agree nor fully disagree with the one finding they asked us to respond to, because the only information we have on that is what they presented in the report.
Yeah. Yes. It's not what I would have written, but it's legally probably what you should write. So I would have said we don't have fees.
We don't do that.
We don't do that, but I agree, I understand why you wrote it as you did. All right, all those in favor of approving the Marin County Jury Report response on behalf of us?
Are there any public comment on it?
John, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, other than the
Sorry,
fact that
I don't do that.
the idea that extra expense would be a disincentive to building property, which makes an enormous amount of sense. I'm not quite sure I understand the answer, but it's all you can say. I mean, there's no response, you have to say,
You have to respond, yeah.
but you have to say, we don't.
On the findings, you have one of three options. You either wholly agree,
Yeah.
you partially disagree, or you
Fully disagree.
wholly disagree. Those are the three responses you're allowed to give in accordance with the penal code when it comes to these jury reports. So since I chose partially disagree because it was the only thing that was kind of in the middle, because I don't think we're educated enough to do either wholly agree or wholly disagree with this particular finding, which
Right.
is.
And
that
we
it is a
don't,
disincent-
actually, as a district, have fees
I
in our
understand that,
district.
but, you know, let's just say that you're purchasing a house and you start saying, well, we're gonna start charging you extra money in order for you to purchase the house in our community. Would that be a disincentive to you, or would that make you feel less apt to purchase the house? Depending upon how high the field was.
I mean, there's fees in every neighborhood, so I would just assume there would be a fee for
I just found
every.
the answer to be sort of comical, I apologize.
Yeah, no, I'm just, when
We
we
all
were
found it
buying
comical.
houses, there was all sorts of fees, so I was just like, okay.
No,
What's one more?
What's
It's
one more?
it's really the building fees, it's hookups.
Yeah, I think-
Water, the sewer, all the hookup fees.
Yeah.
It's
I think it's a
being
fee.
gouged by the government, that's all.
Yeah, it's a fee when you decide to build something later on. It's not when you're purchasing. It's just
Right.
after
Well,
you
Marinwood,
purchased, if you,
Our district doesn't charge anything, it's the county that screws everybody.
yeah. We don't get any taxes
Sorry
like
if
that.
screw is a particular word that should not be used here, but.
I used chillax last time, so we're in slang mode together. All right, all those in favor of approving this? Aye. Motion passes. All right, moving on to number 3, the district manager report. Rick.
Sure, we've talked about it a little bit. FEMA, so on July 31st, we had a team of 4 different people from FEMA that came through for what is their official site inspection. These are the people that take all the measurements, really survey and document the damage at hand. Then they run it up the ladder, and those people do what they do with it, and eventually use a third-party company to try to come up with cost estimates for it. Myself, along with our 2 of our engineers, attended this as well, and we certainly said, our experience, especially these last couple of years, is estimates are all fine and dandy, but when you have to go through a public works sealed bidding process, the cost is what the bids come in at. And we have found that engineering estimates have not met what the bids have come in at. They've often been far reduced, so all of these things are important to keep in mind. I just got notice from another FEMA person who has entered the fray today via email that I haven't previously met or communicated with in any fashion, that he wants to come out and do another site visit for these same purposes. So I responded, and we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully we start to get some answers from FEMA. I have no indication at this point, especially on the creek embankment work, that any of this is not acceptable. They were questioning some of the damage to the building itself, so hopefully maybe this little second visit will resolve some of that. The issue with FEMA is you have 2 components of FEMA funding. One is cost to repair to pre-existing condition, and then you have what's known as mitigation funding, which is the cost to improve and or repair in a manner so that it helps prevent future occurrence. I.e., if we just put a bunch of dirt again on the creek bank, the next high water, that dirt's just gonna wash right out again, which is why we're going with this engineered fix instead. And our proposal for the building is to, use a waterproof membrane, which will actually be part of this much larger project anyway. And they are questioning that a little bit because there wasn't a pre-existing membrane. So I'll fight that battle and we'll see what happens. In all things considered, this is actually very much the much smaller and less expensive component of the larger project. I don't anticipate it costing that much, but to be safe, in the RFP that we are crafting right now, we've actually listed that as an additional alternative, so that way we can have a total breakaway cost just for that component. We'll know what that is as well. Our goal, I'm hoping desperately we can get there to finalize the RFP and get it out, even though FEMA hasn't fully approved the plans, but get the RFP out tomorrow, by end of day. And it'll have about a 3-week turnaround time on bids, and then hopefully we can get some more, notice from FEMA. Just because we go out, we get bids, doesn't mean we have to actually accept a bid, or move forward immediately with the work. And it also doesn't mean we can't rescind the RFP and put it back out if FEMA, it comes back. So, I mean, the kind of key thing to keep in mind that I wrote here, and what is, in all honesty, the biggest challenge besides doing the actual work is coordinating between is no fewer than a half a dozen different agencies involved in this. So you've got FEMA, you've got the county, both of whom have to approve the plans. And then you've also got you've got Department of Fish and Wildlife, you've got the Army Corps of Engineers, you've got the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I mean, so you gotta get all of these agencies to agree. Yeah, so that's the challenge. That's why it's great that we have these contracted engineers who are really kind of managing the project, and I'm doing my best to manage the management of the project in coordination with all these different agencies and FEMA and the county. Although I will say our primary engineer, gentleman named Matt Smeltzer, has had a lot of interaction with the county. He's very familiar with the county. He does a lot of work locally. He knows the people at the county. The county's actually hired him to do work on county lands. So he's been a big help in all of that. We've actually submitted the plans for permitting with the county just last week, so hoping to get that initial feedback. But the bottom line is we're kind of at a point in time where I can't just sit here and wait for FEMA while they kind of drag on this. We have to keep moving, because if we want to get this done before the next rainy season, the work on the creek embankment at a minimum in the creek channel has to be completed by October 31st, because that's a hard stop set by the environmental regulatory agency. So that's why we're pushing so hard to get this out. And I desperately want it out tomorrow, because I will be gone as of Thursday, and I won't be back until after the following week. So I would like this to be out there, and you need enough time for contractors. And we do know some that actually do this type of work. So we will not only be blasting it out the way it has to get blasted out, but we'll be sending it directly to, this is really kind of a specialized job on the creek bank work. And there's not a lot of people that come in and do that. This isn't building a building. So it's, we'll see, but that's where that is. Any questions on that before I move on? These other two things are pretty brief.
Go ahead.
So just so I understand, we're sending out for bids for, as it stands now, FEMA comes back and wants changes, do we cancel that and start the clock all over
It
again?
depends on the scope of the changes. We can always release what's known as an addendum. And that is clearly stated within the things, and as long as you put it out with enough notice, you don't have to restart
Okay,
everything. Now, of course, if they come back and say, no, your entire proposal isn't what we will accept, or, I don't see that coming from the environmental regulatory agencies, because we have a lot of consistent communication with them already. But if we have to change the scope of what's being proposed, then that's not an addendum, that's an entirely new set of engineering plans.
But that's also why you did it as alts, to have like.
Well, the one piece of it, yes, but the rest of it, they go hand in hand. I mean, the creek channel and creek bank work feeds right into the retaining wall work. I mean, these are designed to absolutely complement each other. They're not mutually exclusive. You can't do the wall in one way and then not do the bank repair the way that we're also proposing. So the geotechnical engineer has been working tightly with Matt, our other engineer, and their plans are really one. So what we're looking to do, and what we don't want to do, is break this up into 3 different bidding processes. This is going out as a single RFP, and it'll be up to the general to sub out the different parts of it. Retaining wall's a retaining wall. That's not that hard of a thing to do. It's the main contractor we're going to need is the one with the knowledge behind the creek bank work, because you're talking about dewatering the creek, moving in a lot of heavy material, riprap boulders, large pieces of wood stabilized. There's not a lot of groups out there that do that kind of specific work within a protected creek channel.
What?
I would-
Straightforward to me.
yeah. I guess my question is, if FEMA says no to the water membrane, I personally would like us to still get that quoted and see, because if our engineers are saying this is a good idea to help us prevent,
I don't disagree.
I would want to do that considering we have
I
a
would.
pool right there.
I would
Okay.
strongly encourage it continue to be done. And that's
Okay.
also why we're breaking it off, because you can choose to accept that, you can choose not to accept that. The majority of the work needed to do that is going to be done anyway, because you have to excavate all of that out when they put in the wall, the retaining wall. So all of that extra work has to be done, and then just the part
just
of
pause and
putting
put that
in,
up.
putting
Yeah.
in this membrane and sealing it appropriately, and then you start doing the backfill anyway. So it's not like they're doing any extra excavation because of this. All of the excavation has to happen regardless.
And FEMA will not have a problem with us paying for a little extra.
No, they just won't
Okay.
reimburse that portion.
Okay, that's
And,
fine.
but we'll also be able to show them what that portion of it costs,
Yeah.
based strictly on the bid.
That's fine. I just want to make sure it didn't affect.
And I don't assume that to be a large,
Okay,
relatively speaking, I mean,
okay,
I honestly have no idea what this thing, it could be anywhere from 600 to $1 million.
okay. That's what it is.
Not okay, just kidding.
I mean, it's what it is, right?
It is
You
what it
can't
is.
argue with
We should.
the cost of labor and the cost of materials. You just unfortunately have to pony up.
Well, and this is a specialized project.
Yeah.
Access is tricky, dewatering is tricky, environmental standards are tricky. Again, this is a complex project.
Okay. And no other questions? Should we let Eric keep going with the other items, the special tax assessment in your office?
Those are just little items of note. The special tax assessment, just to update you all that we've completed that process. I'm waiting on the final reports from the county, but my initial figures show that we will receive slightly more revenue than what we budgeted for. This happens every year because we don't know what the tax rolls are when we do the budget, but you know, based on square footage, based on total units, those numbers always tend to go up year over year.
Speaking of ADUs, does the county inform us when people put in ADUs onto their property?
The county does two different things. A, they inform us when somebody has applied for a permit to construct an ADU, and then eventually, once it is done, it goes on to the tax rolls. They're actually known as units. So, because our park is based on a per unit.
Correct.
So,
That's what I-
that's saying an ADU, I would actually add a unit to a person's property, so.
Is this done once a year?
Once a year, yeah.
Okay.
And then it goes to the applicable tax year.
But when
And
it's
then-
complete,
What's that?
when it's complete.
When it's completed and the permit has been closed. Permit approval, right now for ADUs, is simply a ministerial thing, and as long as they have all their setbacks and everything in line, then it's a rubber stamp permit approval, because the state has deemed it to be. So it's just a ministerial approval on it. But yes, and then the square footage comes through, because it adds square footage of living space, and then it also comes through as an additional living unit. I think in all of Marinwood right now, there's like a dozen registered legal ADUs, so a dozen properties that have 2 living units on them, for all of our tax properties.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, yeah, about it. And then we also have, because, you know, we don't have apartments or, apartment buildings or anything like that, it's on a single parcel. And that said, there is also, I am sure, a percentage of non-conforming ADUs, meaning they converted their garage and never permitted it, so the county doesn't know. It's not my job, nor would I ever encourage the board to start going around and looking at every house to see if they have an illegal accessory dwelling.
Nope, I'm out.
Yeah, but they will let us know, it will show up. One thing I will say, this new development that's happening on the corner, it's 28 parcels. 22 of those parcels are also going to be including an ADU, so that'll jump that number up a lot. And then on the other 6 parcels are scheduled to be duplexes, so those will also have 2 living units per parcel on them as well. So you're looking at, an increase of 56 living units, plus all the square footage, and let's just say they're not building small houses on the hillside there. Because our fire tax goes by square footage. But right now, they're still just being charged for undeveloped acreage. And then this was just a small little update on the California Voter Right Act, just because I brought it to your attention a couple months ago. That one of the big cases that has kind of been proceeding through the smaller courts has been picked up by the Supreme Court. CSDA is tracking and following this. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. But the one thing that everybody's kind of hoping comes out of this, one way or the other, is that you actually have some court decision precedent, which basically carries the weight of law as to needs to go from at-large elections, which a small district like ours currently does, to moving into district-based elections like larger cities or counties do. And a lot of this, they have to define how they're going to decide what that is. Is it basically based on a certain percentage of minorities that live in our underrepresented communities that live within an area? Again, I'm not worried about this for Marinwood in any way, shape, or form. Our legal counsel's not worried about this for Marinwood. But it will be nice to have some clear definition from the court and be able to set some legal precedent rather than somebody just dropping lawsuits on everybody and stating, give me my $37,000 or let's go to a very expensive trial.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Very thorough. Just keep us updated. All
Comments?
right. Moving on, oh, sorry, Eric, sorry.
Just a question, is this intending to allow special districts or smaller districts to move back from the presidential elections to their own cycle?
No, what this has to do with is going from an at-large election where basically everybody has an equal vote for all candidates to going to a district-based election where you subdivide your jurisdiction into 5 separate and distinct districts.
I see.
Kind of like how the Board of Supervisors all
Right.
represent a specific district,
Right.
geographical district.
Okay.
So this is a geographical thing, and there's been a lot of push lately to move from at-large, forcing people to go to district-based.
Mhm.
All counties are already required to do it, and all cities above a certain population were already required to do it. The issue is you have a law firm in Southern California that has been basically targeting public agencies up and down the state, sending them a letter that states, you need to do this, and what they have kind of found is that at a minimum, they settle out of court for $37,000 in their legal fees, as well as switching to a district-based election. Or take it to trial, and trials quickly get up into 6-7 figures.
I get it.
So this one case is actually gonna be very beneficial to every public agency. What it might wind up doing is create a standard that allows some of these agencies that settle to then go from district back to an at-large election, especially in more rural areas.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Again, Joe, I'm sorry. All right. Is there any other public? No. We're moving on to fire department matters. I don't think we need to read through, but does anybody have any questions about the draft minutes from the fire commission meeting or the chief officer report and activity summary? And on that, okay, so we'll go first with the draft minutes. Does anybody have any questions about what's written, and does Kathleen have anything that she wants to make a statement about?
Nope.
Since she was there.
Nope. It's pretty exciting. No, the only other, no, not on the minutes, but the report, I would say, I would encourage everyone to go look at the website, the what's the other?
UPA.
Thank you, their website. They're putting a lot of effort into what they're doing and why it's such a good thing, because we're halfway through it, and so pretty soon it will be on the ballot before we know it, and they're really trying to show what what our money is going to. So I would only encourage everyone to kind of go check that out.
Yeah, I can give a brief update when we get to the chief officer report part of it there.
And you're there.
Any other comments on the minutes?
No, none of the 10 minutes. Jeff, would you like to have any comments about the minutes?
You know, he is a former fire commissioner.
I know, that's good for that, when I was an alternative on the fire commission.
All right.
No, it's on the Parks and Rec, never mind, I'm really not thinking. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I would just play up a little bit with what Kathleen said, and the MWPA is certainly trying to showcase some of their accomplishments. Bill might have more to say about this. One thing we did share at the commission meeting, and I pushed it out after the fact, is their executive officer, a gentleman named Mark Brown, who by all accounts has done a fine job as kind of the founding EO of this, as well as their current board chair, who's actually County Supervisor Dennis Rodoni, wrote a letter to the IJ that was published, really highlighting the work that they are doing and working with state level agencies as well as insurance agencies in addressing some of the challenges that homeowners are currently facing with getting their homeowners insurance canceled because they live in high fire danger areas. California is especially hit hard with this, so if you haven't had a chance to see that editorial, I strongly encourage you to read it because the efforts they're making are vast and impressive. Otherwise, that's all I really had to add on to that. If there is any other specific questions about the chief report, I'm happy to take a stab at answering them, or I can forward them on to the chief and get you a response at a later date.
And like clockwork, we are under 6 minutes. He is still impressed.
Yeah, the only other fire update I would give is, I know I brought this up a meeting or two ago, just on some of the challenges of hiring. We actually do have a candidate firefighter paramedic in the pipeline right now. He is scheduled to go next week for a second interview, which is a chief panel interview. So fingers crossed that continues to work out. But he made it through our initial interview, and we all definitely wanted to keep moving this person in the process. So we are moving in the process, and we'll see what comes of it.
Is this the person who's in school?
No.
Oh.
No,
Another
this is a firefighter paramedic with experience on both sides of the equation.
Okay, so that's good to know that there was 2 people who are thinking of that. I know there was one that.
Yeah, right now we have one.
Okay.
So I have a question. So after that interview, what's the process after that?
After that interview, then they move on to what's known as the chief panel. So they interview with the chief or some of the chief's designees. This particular one will happen with the deputy chief because Chief White is out of town, along with the battalion chiefs. And then from there, they'll kind of provide us with their feedback. If we're all still feeling comfortable about this, we will initiate a formal background investigation and check on the person. As long as those things come through, we will then give them a conditional offer, asking to fingerprint. They'll have to go down and take a physical. And if all of that works out, we will bring them on board, and they'll be in a probationary period for at least up to a year.
And how long does it normally take?
Background can take a couple weeks. You know, I mean, we use a third-party service, and this is a pretty thorough background investigation that they do. And they talk to former employers, they, search all sorts of criminal records, credit records, driving. It's a thorough background investigation that is standard when you're bringing somebody into any safety, police, any of that. It just, it takes a little bit of time, but the chief interview is scheduled for next week, so that's good. And then I'll be back the day after that happens, so we will be able to touch base relatively quickly, launch the background component of it relatively quickly, and then hopefully be able to just kind of keep moving.
Keep us updated. Do we have any questions on the board? I had a comment. I had actually let Chief know, last month, I was scrolling through my Apple News, and I'm looking at these hills that are golden and firefighters, and I had to click on it and read it. It was a picture of our guys training out, these photos that he showed us in the Marinwood CSD. It's different ones, but of them doing the countywide training, and it was in the Guardian, talking about California wildfires. So I sent it on to Chief. I think had a chuckle over that and forwarded it on to the guys talking about it. We have no idea who the pictures, it was like so zoomed out, but it was kind of cool to see our little Marinwood in the Guardian for some reason. All right, Jeff, would you like to have any questions?
Curious, the fact that we've got an open position, how dramatically has that changed the overtime and the bills coming in from San Rafael?
It's changed the the overtime dramatically, not necessarily the bills from Centerville, because they've also had some staffing challenges as well, so we haven't been able to utilize their staff as often to come in and fill the spot. Compounding the problem is we've had a couple of, midterm as well as now one long-term injury that also took another person off, so, we had 7 people active. Right now, the long-term injury that we're dealing with is not happened out of work. It wasn't an industrial injury, didn't happen on the job, but it's going to keep this person out for 4 to 6 months before it's killed.
Okay, thank you.
Alright. We're moving on to Parks and Recreation matters. Alright, I don't think we can read it off, but.
No. Thank you. Yeah, so just to highlight a couple things. We're coming to the close of our summer camp season. This is week 9 for us out of 10. And the summer's going extremely well. Very, very pleased with the staff, with our enrollment, and it's been just really fun and very, I want to say easy. It has been easy, but it's been very, it's run very smoothly. It's been a very smooth summer. I'm very grateful to Robin and our camp supervisor staff for managing a good program and training a good staff, and everything's been gone very much as we intended, so we're very happy about that. Next week is technically our session 10, but it's a much scaled down version of our summer camps. We don't have the staff or the facilities to run our full program. We put this together very last minute when we found out there was an extra week of summer due to the school district starting later than expected.
Surprise!
Surprise! So we're running 3 camps that are larger age groups, but we'll be running a lot of our normal programs, and it should be a really fun group, but it's just a little bit scaled down, and we're looking forward to that. And then that'll be our final week of our summer camp program. The pool season continues on. That's been going really well. We go all the way through October 6th. And the hot weather's brought a lot of people to the pools this last couple weeks, and our swim lesson enrollment has been really good. Our guards and training program has been one of the strongest seasons we've had, so we're really happy about that. We just had our annual in-house lifeguard games where the lifeguard staff competes with each other on different teams to kind of show off their skills and everything they've been training for all summer. And that went really well, and it was really fun to see them all competing. I gave John Paul a credit. We had to hire a lot of new people this year, and you wouldn't know it based on the way they dress and their skills. They definitely are acting like second, third, and fourth year lifeguards in terms of the competency. So I'm very proud of them and happy with the staff. I'm currently teaching, I did this on my report, but we have a lot of staff that are interested in getting the lifeguard instructor certification through the American Red Cross, and I do have that certification to be able to offer that. So we're running our senior lifeguard staff and a few up-and-comers through that program this week, each day this week. Just a big week for me, and I'm teaching 6 hours a day, but it's been really good so far, 2 days in, and after this we'll have a handful of our staff will be certified to be able to teach CPR and lifeguard classes during the summer, and then moving that around during the off-season, which will help us be able to train more people and offer more classes, and then just have a higher level of training on our staff. So that's a really good thing we're really excited about, and so far everyone's been doing great. Hopefully everyone can pass this week, and we'll have more instructors on staff. So Brewfest, our summer Brewfest was on July 22nd, and that was
hot.
It was very hot. It was the hottest day of the year so far, and among our hottest days we've ever had for that. But it was a great event, and we had a lot of great breweries, good music, good turnout, and we're very pleased with how that event went. It was extremely fun. It was hot though. The first couple hours was pretty brutal, but thankfully the breeze came in at the end and kind of saved us.
The beer was flowing.
Yeah, the beer was flowing. Our next event is we had our third Music in the Park last Friday, which was really great.
It was amazing, it's a great band.
Got a lot of positive feedback about our band. We had a really good cover band, Mercy and the Heartbeats, doing a whole range of great covers from lots of different popular music.
80, 90s and beyond.
80s, 90s and beyond. And so it was really fun. And we have one more coming up.
It was great.
A week from this Friday will be our last Music in the Park this year. And so I don't remember, I didn't write down a week from this Friday. So 2 weeks from last
Yeah,
Friday.
it's like
The 18th of August will be
Yeah.
our last one, and I don't have it written down who our final artist is, but it's on our website, and I'm sure it'll be another great show, so hope you guys can make it to that. We're switching gears right now in the art department to focus on our fall season, and the Marinwood Review is almost done, and will be coming out in the next few weeks, highlighting all of our programs in the fall and winter, and that's coming together, and we're really excited. We've got some new classes for both adults and kids. And so that should be, we'll have all those details very shortly finalized, and a lot of that stuff's already up on our website. We'll be opening registration for a lot of those programs very soon. Any questions about the recreation report before I move on to parks maintenance?
No, I just wanted to chirp in about the Brew Fest.
Yeah.
It was really good. Lots of people, a lot of kids. I can't believe that many kids drink beer.
I know it's
And then the turf on the north part looks awesome.
yeah.
Starting to fill in. Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue, Bill.
Thank you.
Eric just passed me a note. I'm just gonna, before I move on to turf, there is a development in one of our fall programs that is worth noting. Our after-school program has been thrown a little bit of a curveball with the school district is, as of right now, not going to provide bus service to our program, which they have been doing in the past. I think that's due to a shortage of bus drivers. They are limiting the bus routes to just certain students in the school, and they, as of right now, are not planning on taking kids from the schools to our after-school program, which makes that very challenging for a lot of the families that take advantage of our program. We are in contact with the families that were signed up for this year, and letting them know that, and finding out if that's a deal breaker for people, and just kind of what our enrollment will look like if in fact if that bus service does not happen. We're in touch with the school district as well, trying to figure out if that's going to change, if there's any developments on that, but as of right now, we don't know what's going to happen, but we know, as of right now, they're saying there will not be a way for kids to get to our program that were previously taking the bus to it, so.
How many kids did we have already signed up?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think we had 20-something kids sign up for the program, and
90% of which.
yeah, at least 90% of which were taking the bus to get there. So
Is it from all three schools?
we were getting
the bus.
primarily Lucas Valley and Mary Silvera, or you know, I don't know if we had Valsito, but
Valsito.
yeah. So we had one kid come from Wood Creek that would walk, but the bus would, primarily all the kids from those two schools, over 90% were coming on the bus. So we're working on that, and trying to get, talk to the parents, talk to the school, and we have not decided what's going to be the outcome of that as of right now, but we're just in communication with everybody and trying to develop a plan. So that has been thrown up in the air as of right now, and definitely update the board the next meeting as to what we're at on all that.
I feel bad for those parents. That's a huge loop.
Yeah, and it's a week,
2
2 weeks before the schools,
I mean,
year supposed to
it's a
start.
wrench that's impacted all the schools too,
Yeah.
not just aftercare. There's a lot of families that will be without bus service that were counting on it.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's a
I
problem.
knew that, but I was thinking think about both us and also not being able to do it. All right, sorry.
Yeah, it's a huge problem for people, and I'm hoping that they can figure something out to solve that. It doesn't sound like they've been characterizing it as a permanent situation, but it's the as of right now situation, and so we have to go with what we know. So.
You know anybody who wants to be a bus driver?
It's not that simple.
It's,
It takes a long
I'm
time.
very familiar.
There was
with
a
it.
whole, that whole email
I'm
of like.
very
what it
familiar with the
explains.
requirements. I've worked
Actually-
places that had bus drivers.
But I was glad that the district sent that out instead, like it takes hours and hours and like months to become a bus driver, so it helped. It's not a quick fix, that's the problem.
And you need applicants. Yeah, they just can't get people to apply.
Oh,
And we-
drive a bus with a bunch of kids.
Just as like an aside, we have had the local, some of the local bus drivers take their first aid certification classes from us historically. We've been certifying the district bus drivers for as long as I've worked here. They get to renew their first aid with us, not with us, but they choose to, we've been doing that for years. It's been the same people for as long as I've worked here, so I hadn't really thought about that.
I think
but-
Rob retiring for the whole district for a loop.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. Anything else on that? If I move over to the Parks Maintenance report?
Yes,
Yeah, no, not too there. So, Bill mentioned the turf in the north end of the park, and I'm pleased to be able to report that we were able to finally get the park turf sort of replaced after having that area be just covered in wood chips, and once upon a time had all the shipping containers in our little maintenance yard there. Finally starting to be able to return that back to its original park setting. We ended up rolling out sod because this is a hard time to grow grass from seed with the weather and everything, and it's looking really nice. We're trying to keep it watered as much as possible, especially these 90+ degree days. It's not ideal for growing new grass, but everything's looking really good, and we're excited to keep improving that area. So we ran some irrigation, fixed some irrigation in that area that had been capped and defunct, and we'll be adding in a walking path there and a little picnic area, and potentially another goggle ball pit will be put down there. So that area will continue to evolve. Keep an eye on that, but as right now we're excited to have the turf in, and it's looking really nice. Unfortunate news, on July 26th, we discovered one of the slides had gone missing in our playground, the main playground here. It was there the previous day when we left, and we showed up in the morning, and it was gone. Looks like it had been forcibly just kind of ripped off of the stands holding it there. There were some tools left behind. No idea where that is as of right now. We did file a police report. The sheriff came out and opened an investigation and took photos and whatnot. No information is known at this time, but we had staff secure the area. They boarded up the hole in the play structure where you would start sliding down so that no one would fall off up there, and we removed all of the hardware from the ground so we didn't have hazards there for kids running around, and so that's where we're at right now,
They couldn't just wait a few months and then take it?
Yeah, it's interesting timing with the new playground
We wanted
replacement
to help.
project, but so we're hoping no other playground pieces disappear in the next coming months, but
I
yeah.
did call the company though to see if they would knock their total cost down. We've already had one of the slides removed as part of the demo.
Can we save $100?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so.
and we cannot replace it because by the time we replace it, we'll be ripping it out. So unfortunately, the kids are down one slide.
Yeah, it is
until-
unfortunate. I would like to be able to replace it, but just with the cost and the timing, it probably just doesn't really make sense.
It will show up like the day
So.
before we do that.
And I'm pretty sure they'll make that slide anymore
Yeah.
also, so it gets tricky trying to fabricate something custom to fit our existing area. Anyway, so it's unfortunate, but we'll make do, the kids seem to still be enjoying the playground, thankfully, so. And no one was injured as a result of the missing slide, so. And lastly, we have had some pests in the park this summer, and we've had a lot of, the last couple of weeks, there's been a huge increase in yellow jacket activity. I'm sure you've all noticed in your areas of the neighborhood, but
Yeah, we can't catch that anymore.
staff have gone out and just made sure we have yellow jacket traps that are ready to go. We hadn't had any issues at all summer, and all of a sudden they just kind of showed up out of nowhere. So we're dealing with that, and I've already witnessed an improvement here in the park at least, so hopefully that continues to be okay. And then the park's just been like riddled with gophers this summer, and we've been constantly working at that. It's been the worst year I've seen since I've been involved with the parks. And talking to our gopher abatement contractor, they said it's the worst season in recent history for mating season or whatever. So gophers are all over the place, and they're just struggling to keep on top of it. So we're working, but it's really annoying because our turf is looking some of the best it's looked this point in the summer ever, except there's gopher holes everywhere, so it's everywhere. So there's green grass, but there's holes. So we're doing our best to try to abate that and keep those holes filled and make sure no one's tripping and falling out there. But it's been irritating to have a really good grass season, but a bad gopher season. So upcoming projects, just we're going to continue the landscaping the north end of the park. We are going to be installing a memorial bench for Jim Juarez near the horseshoe pits. I think that's going to start later this week. The parts came in, or we started to put that together, and then we'll be doing some upkeep out of the mini park later this week and into next week. That's all I wanted to touch on. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
I have one for Jim's bench. Do you know if they're doing anything? Like a relief, like viewing or anything with Sean? Or do you just put it in and say, it's in?
I've been in contact with Sean about the timeline, and I let him know that it came in, and I clarified location with him this week, and so I'll be in touch with him as we know when it's going to be complete. So he might have something in mind for a reveal or a ribbon cutting or something. I don't know, but yeah, I'll leave that up to the family.
And then are you taking out the one that's painted then?
No, there are no plans to move that or change that at
That's
all.
just my next.
We're getting an additional place to sit. Okay,
All for us.
it's an office. Sorry.
The grass looks great. I just wanted to read it. And so did the sand underneath. And I didn't know that you do that.
This summer's been amazing. People have been super happy from what I've heard. I really enjoyed music in the park, and I appreciate you guys staying late on those days to do it, and also being here for 6 hours training and then coming to our lovely meeting. So I have no other questions. Bill? No? Okay. Jeff, would you like to make a comment or have a question?
Just one short comment. I'm thankful that I don't have to take the yellow jacket thing personally. Whoa. I just got back like 4 or 5 days ago, and they're my best friends. You can't sit outside
No.
and do anything.
Yeah, it's not unique to the park. Where I live on the northern part of Marinwood, they're like Luke said, I just woke up one morning and they're everywhere
Yeah.
and very persistent. So
Okay.
Our traps are full.
yeah.
So my husband did some research. Apparently, all over Marin and the surrounding areas, there's all of a sudden an explosion of yellow jackets. It's really bad this year. Because every time I try to set plates outside,
But did his research tell him why?
no.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that was where that ended. Nobody knows.
All right.
Okay. No other questions? Just lots of thank yous to Luke and to the staff for everything that they've done this summer, and looking forward to seeing the fall. Let's move on to H, board members' item and interest and request for future agenda items. And just updates and FEMA and firefighter, and that's it. All right, if nobody has anything else, do we have
Move to
okay.
adjourn?
Well, now, would you like to put a member, item for future agenda items? Okay.
You're welcome to attend.
Thanks.
There you go.
I guess we will adjourn. Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Perfect. Our next date of our next regular board meeting is September 12th, 2023, and we will hear what the ensuing school school year is going to look like for us?